Hey, what's good, everyone? Twisted here with the Open Sorcery, and today I want to go ahead and talk about meme magic. Now, you may have gone ahead and heard that terminology used beforehand, especially if you are a frequent user of the internet, which I think it's safe to assume that if you're listening to this, you have some level of expertise on the internet, but I think it depends more so on the corners of the internet that you happen to frequent and or visit, in which you may or may not be more so familiar with this terminology. But before we get into meme magic in of itself, we kind of have to go ahead and describe what a meme is. Now, once again, as frequent users of the internet, as many of us are, and likely the listener of this particular monologue will happen to be, you'll be familiar with memes as images, as going ahead and sharing these ideas and concepts through the pictorial digital form. However, in terms of the concept, the idea of it, long before the internet itself became more so of the popular exchange of ideas and information, as it were, the concept of a meme, in fact, still existed. And I will go ahead and quote the late, great Terence McKenna for his definition of what a meme is. A meme is the smallest unit of meaning for an idea. And this was stated in contrast, and I'm going to be paraphrasing here, not giving exact verbiage or reciting, but this is in comparison to genes as the smallest unit of meaning for heredity. So in relation to that, in relation to that, it is the idea that for concepts, for ideas, for thoughts, and you could even say for thought forms, which, I have talked about previously on the channel and all of that. But for all these sorts of things, a meme is the smallest unit of meaning, or like the smallest atoms, you can say, the smallest building block for these sorts of things, or at least in a manner which we can comprehend at this present moment in time. Now, in relation to meme magic, this in of itself is, we can go ahead and there are many different definitions and many different means of going ahead and trying to think about it, right? But there is one particular pictorial meme which has a text, several sentences in text that, I think go ahead and do the job decently enough for this particular talk. So right here. Meme magic is an emergent property of a decentralized network of ideas. It's the combined ideas and beliefs of every person in the network. It is a reflection of every node and the current reality. Mainstream magic is the central nodes pushing information downstream, dictating reality to change whatever the central node is saying it is. Meme magic is essentially, or basically, the resonant vibrations of reality starting to crumble the basis of the simulation of reality by a centralized authority. So it's pretty much saying that to put it very simply, decentralization of a network, so think of like a spider's web, as opposed to a centralized network, or once again, downstream of a river, or you could say branching off from a tree with, a defined singular trunk, what have you. Just, I think those two visualizations, for those who are more so visually minded, may go ahead and do the trick and do the job. Now, Terence McKenna, back to him. He was very, he, amongst many other things, and of course he's more so known for his talks on psychedelics and like the I Ching, the singularity, and so on and so forth. But he talked about memetics quite a bit as well. And granted, when he mentioned it back in his lifetime, which was, the 90s and prior to that, he went ahead and was talking about how Hollywood, how LA was the origin point of spreading memes throughout the course of his lifetime, right? And moving towards the direction of the internet as time went on. And in that sort of manner, there's two ways of looking at it, right? Based on the previous sort of, comparing and contrasting of, say, meme magic and mainstream magic that was given, right? You can say that Hollywood itself was more so of mainstream magic, and that, as time has gone on, we've gone from centralization to more so of a decentralized manner. Or what you can think of is that it's always been, it is a passageway through the decentralized network, the spider's web, that is interconnecting everything, right? But Hollywood, LA, that is just another larger node, right? That's spreading everything around, but it does not necessarily mean it is the singular focal origin point. One way you can go ahead and think about this is, I'm sure that, if you're listening to this, the present year is 2023, and many of the popular Hollywood blockbuster films is just a lot of things that are being rehashed, or older properties that are going ahead and being, redone if they've already had films made, or if not, they're just already proven in some way, shape, or form as video games or as book IPs and intellectual properties, and not really much in terms of the way of creativity of original ideas and screenplays, or at least supposedly not the case in comparison to a couple of decades ago. But in this sort of sense, you can see Hollywood as being another decentralized node that is just taking an idea and going ahead and, just broadcasting it through a different sort of medium. And while we're talking about Hollywood itself, I will just take the moment of, talking about the origin of the name for the sake of it. And for those who are unaware, Hollywood, the origin of it is tied to how Druids used to go ahead and create their wands. And they would take it from the wood of the holly tree. So, and that, I believe my first time of hearing that was from Jordan Maxwell, who is now passed and deceased as well, as of last year, I believe. And yes, his mentioning of the etymology of that, along with other etymologies of things. But alas, he went ahead and spoke about the nature of the holly tree, and that being, Hollywood going ahead and casting spells, going ahead and, essentially performing meme magic, taking ideas, broadcasting them to a larger audience, allowing them to gain more so prominence, and dictating what the current manner of reality is, in fact. So yes, in that sort of manner, you can go ahead and apply that to other sorts of larger mediums, what have you, or, smaller sorts of manners of broadcasting. Not just necessarily major blockbuster films. They can be independent films, or B-rate films, or, music, or what have you. YouTube videos. I'm sure you get the point by now what I'm saying. But alas, as we go ahead and we continue, right, there's another definition of meme magic that I felt like, is worth mentioning. And this is kind of like making it a little more so focused into the manner in which we're more so familiar with it, if you've heard the term before, and more so the likely application that you may be familiar with. So this definition of meme magic comes from St. Obama Mom Jeans, which is a funny username, a funny pseudonym, a funny moniker. Their ebook, Intermediate Meme Magic, and it goes as follows. Meme magic is a slang term used to describe the hypothetical power of sorcery and voodoo, supposedly derived from certain internet memes that can transcend the realm of cyberspace and result in real-life consequences. So this in and of itself, of course, the idea of the less tangible to tangible, even if it isn't necessarily internet-based, is something that you would think for magic quite a bit in terms of low magic or sorcery, what have you, and that sort of thing. But, this, go ahead and tying it with, once again, internet memes that you may be used to seeing and the propagation and spreading of that, and it being tied to technomancy, right? This sort of technomantic usage that, like I said, we're more familiar with. And that is something else I've gone ahead and spoken about before, is the general nature of technomancy. And, of course, you can check that out on the channel, and I'll go ahead and provide the links to the previous videos if you want to go ahead and listen. But alas. So, in speaking about, all of this, another thing that's, should be mentioned here, right, is, at least I went ahead and I spoke about it before, and you may have caught it, but, memes in terms of being the smallest sort of units of thought forms, right, earlier on. I believe I used that particular terminology. But yes, being the smallest unit of meaning for an idea, for generating, concepts, thought forms, all that sort of thing. And once again, another topic that has been spoken about, and I'll provide a link for, thought forms. But yes, going ahead and speaking on how through memes we give power and create thought forms of various sorts, whether they be, and, just to summarize the scale that was used in that previous video, tulpas, servitors, egregores, or even god forms, and so on and so forth, right? So if we, for example, and, I think I should go ahead and mention this now and use this as a segue for later on after another point. The idea, the concept of Pepe the Frog, which is the figure, the icon that is usually associated with meme magic nowadays for the last 7+ years or so. And, it having started off a certain manner, in the mid-2000s, the Feels Good Man frog, and then it evolving over time. That sort of application, meme magic making such a larger icon figure, what have you, than originally it was. Or at least in our modern conception of it. Now, before actually getting into Pepe itself, what have you, because once again, the most associated figure when you think of meme magic, I do want to go ahead and mention that meme magic in of itself is a sort of offshoot, or it is heavily tied in with the notions in the philosophy of chaos magic, which, chaos magic in of itself is more so freeform as opposed to, say, the ceremonial Western magical tradition, or any sort of formalized manner of magic. It's seen more so as freeform. It can be, oppositional or antagonistic, or, anti-cosmic in some cases, right? Of like, the order of things, we're just going to go ahead and try to be wonky, try to be edgy, try to go ahead and do things differently, right? As opposed to the natural order of things, or, the establishment, whether it be of, like, say, the state, or say of, the universe, or at least as the particular aim, even though, truth be told, you're working within the system to go against the system. That's my own perspective of those who are more so of the anti-cosmic manner, particularly that of, like, say, Discordianism. But alas, it is very much tied to chaos magic in of itself. And there are many books out there by Austin Osman Spare, Phil Hine, so on and so forth about chaos magic in of itself. There's also the Psychonauts Field Manual by Archtrader Blue Fluke that you can go ahead and read. Freely available online. Just gotta go ahead and search it, what have you. But yes, if you want to learn more about chaos magic. But back on the topic of meme magic itself. So, talking about Pepe the Frog, right? And, if you've heard of meme magic, you likely know of the connotations and associations that Pepe has in terms of how it has grown to prominence with meme magic. But just in case you haven't, Pepe is a frog character, and it is believed to have been derived, at least in a unconscious way, from a ancient Kemetic god, a ancient Kemetic Egyptian being, entity, primordial force that is usually referred to as Kek in the modern day, Hek, and various other alternative pronunciations and spellings, what have you. But this force in of itself, this primordial force, was depicted as a god in the Egyptian times, and was one of the manifestations of chaos, the primordial manner of chaos. One of 8, or at least within the set of 8 beings that, were more so the primordial sort. And they were referred to as the Ogdoad in the ancient Egyptian, mythos and pantheon. And granted, as time went on, a lot of the prominence of different entities and beings within, that region of the world changed in which ones, let's say Osiris or Ra or, Horus or Isis, or so on and so forth, like which ones rose to prominence and which ones were more so seen as obscure as time went on. But alas, this is me more so riffing, kind of going on a detour at this point. But to center it back, Kek is one of the primordial forces, and many ties were made between Kek and Pepe, in terms of Pepe's rise of prominence in the modern day being a resurgence of an indicator of these primordial forces coming back into the fold, as opposed to, the current established orders of being, whether you want to say it's different Abrahamic religions, such as Judaism, Christianity, Islam, or even certain Eastern traditions, what have you. But yes, trying to give name to the older, nameless things that may be having an influence in making the world as seemingly wonky, at least as a good section of people believe, in relation to prior to the past, decade or so, than it had been, for however long. Now, in terms of Pepe the Frog and, the digital space, very prominent across many different image boards and what have you. You can say the home of Pepe the Frog happens to be 4chan, as well as other related image boards. And, I would say that from my understanding, from my manner of having interface with 4chan, that it happens to go ahead and be a meme generator and a cultural driver and a hub where, a lot of people who are, able to feel more able to express freely than on other places on the net or in real life. Many keyboard warriors there on that site for sure. But they go ahead and a lot of energy is put into the different memes that gain prominence, and that being a origin point, a starting point for these different memes to emerge into different places on the net. And once again, if you're familiar with the term meme magic, or Pepe the Frog itself, from its manner of prominence in the media, you've likely heard of how it is believed that the meme magic tied to Pepe the Frog or 4chan helped President Donald Trump get elected. And there's one infamous post, which I believe is from the poll board or from the B board, which is the random board for those who are unaware. It happened to go ahead and be that, well, let me go ahead and give a numerological sort of preface before I say this. So the number 7 is seen as the divine number, generally speaking, especially in the Bible and other sorts of different religious texts and traditions, right? But alas, in the during the election cycle of 2016, where Donald Trump, eventually won, there was a particular post on the poll or the B board, I forget which, but it's probably the poll board, where Donald Trump was predicted to win. It said simply Trump will win. And on the post number, for those who are unaware of how 4chan works, anonymous posting, and each individual post is counted up and tallied up, and it is stated what number said post is. Now, this particular post was number 77777777. So that's 8 sevens in a row right there. And for those who are aware of numerology and, the prominence and power of numbers as they are repeated, growing exponentially stronger and such, right? This divine number 7, what have you, it was seen as very significant and a marker of the, actual result of Donald Trump eventually winning, and going ahead and promoting and driving the notion of meme magic, pushing forward Donald Trump's presidency to those who happen to believe it, and so on and so forth. But alas, that is the most prominent example of that. And, for me, I'm like, hey, look, if it did, so be it. If not, then oh well. But, honestly, meme magic in of itself, the general notion, I definitely go ahead and give it some credence quite a bit, just through my own personal sort of observations and experiences with it, what have you. And another term that I think would be, interesting to go ahead and note, and to, not necessarily within the scope of this video and just talking about meme magic itself, but just the notion of synchronicities, what have you. I've noticed quite a few synchronicities when it comes to things related to memes or meme magic myself, but that's only personal experience, personal gnosis, what have you, in terms of that. And it is up for everyone to come to their own conclusions. But, and just covering the general idea, the concept of meme magic, right, and what that entails, I think that does a good enough job of getting that concept across. If you're wanting to go ahead and learn more about it, definitely more so in the vein of Pepe the Frog and Kek, and done in a very meme-like manner. I mentioned St. Obama Mom Jeans' ebook on intermediate meme magic, but they have several more that you can go ahead and check out for yourself. There is the book The Art of Memetics Pirate Edition by Edward Wilson and Wes Unruh that you can go ahead and check out. And of course, you can dive into different things about chaos magic or technomancy and all of that sort of thing across the net. Many more books in that manner, but I think I've gone ahead and given you some direction to go in, some breadcrumbs to go ahead and check out if you're interested in those subjects. But alas, I think that serves the purpose, and I'll leave it be for now. So this is Twisted with Open Sorcery, and stay frosty, Neguses. Peace.